So this is pretty darn hilarious. So you guys remember classical liberal left wing, somehow those two coexist. I don't know how that's possible. It's spoiler, it's not. But Sargon, there was a little movement that was made for UKIP back in sometime during the summer. I forget exactly when. I think it was June, July, somewhere around there. There was a little movement where there was the internet. There was a part of the internet that was flocking towards going to UKIP. And that consisted of people, Sargon, Count Dankula, and I think a couple of other people. I don't remember any of the other people who did that. But Tommy Robinson, I think, is part of it as well. And he had that whole thing where he was, he was tampering with, with the jury and things like that. So there's been a lot going on there. Now, this is supposed to have, I guess their goal in UKIP is to, overthrow the establishment. They don't like either party, the Tories or the Labour Party, and so they were trying to do their own sort of movement. Now, this has kind of imploded their party, and it's definitely somewhat split it. Now, Nigel Farage, who I don't know everything about UK politics, not even close, but I always thought that he was sort of the front face of the Brexit movement. Because, I mean, if you guys remember, he's the one who was all about that, the speech he gave, and he even talks about this in the video clip that I'm going to show you guys in a second. I always thought he was sort of the face, if not the leader per se, like the face of the Brexit movement is what I always, perceived Nigel to be as. And he seemed pretty important to that, and Brexit did end up passing. Now, Nigel, he has left because of leadership changes in UKIP. Now, this is pretty big. It really, the reason when I said it's split, it's somewhat split because Nigel left, but from all the responses that I saw, it was all just hammering him. It seemed like nobody was like, yeah, man, way to stick up for your own principles, I'm leaving too. I didn't see that anywhere. I didn't see that in any of the replies, so I don't know how split it is, but certainly it's imploding part of it, and it's definitely changing in a different way. I guess there's a new leader in place who's more gearing towards the sort of memers and people like Sargon, and he made a video about Nigel Farage as well leaving because he wrote a piece, and he also made a video about this. You guys can go ahead and check out the video here.
I joined UKIP, well, my card here says in 1992, because that was when it was the Anti-Federalist League. So for over a quarter of a century, I've been involved in UKIP and its forerunner. I have worked tirelessly for UKIP. I've spoken at 1,500 public meetings up and down the country. During those years, I've travelled hundreds of thousands of miles, and the aim was very simple. It was to take votes away from the establishment parties to force a vote in this country that would get us back our independence. And you could argue that in 2016 we had been pretty successful. One of the keys to that was talking about things that everybody else wanted to brush under the carpet, issues like immigration, which we were told if you discuss that, it's somehow disreputable. I made sure that UKIP talked about tough issues, but we absolutely excluded anybody who'd ever been a member of the British National Party, the English Defence League. We wanted to make sure that when the abuse was thrown at us, it couldn't possibly be proved to be true. Now, I'm afraid that over the course of the last few months, under this leader, Mr. Gerard Batten, a lot has changed, and he seems to be pretty obsessed with the issue of Islam, not just Islamic extremism, but Islam, and UKIP wasn't founded to be a party based on fighting a religious crusade, and also obsessed with this figure called Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who is seen by some to be a great hero standing up and fighting for working class people, but who has a pretty suspect record and who brings with him a group of people, I'm afraid, amongst which we see scuffles, violence, many have criminal records, some pretty serious. And all of it's been dragging UKIP away from being an electoral party into a party of street activism. I have warned, and I wrote 10 days ago, that this direction was catastrophic, particularly at a time when the great Brexit betrayal is upon us. Both the Labour and Conservative parties have broken promises that were made, not just in the referendum, but in the general election as well. Things couldn't be better for UKIP, but unfortunately, we've gone in this direction of street activism and turning a blind eye to extremist politics. Many of the best people that I've worked with over those many long years have already left the party in the space of the last few weeks. There was one last hope that the party's national executive at the weekend would do something about this, would, pass a motion of no confidence in Gerard Batten ahead of what's due this Sunday. And this Sunday, there's going to be a march in London with Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson as the speakers. That 2 days before the most important parliamentary vote of modern times. And the image that will give of what Brexit stands for is something that our enemies will use against us for perhaps many years to come. Damaging UKIP is one thing. Damaging the Brexit cause is even worse. And I, with a very heavy heart, given how much I've cared for this party, the people within it, have reached, I think, a very sad decision, certainly very sad for me, that I simply can't go on with it. I don't recognise the party as being the one that I helped to found and fought for all of those years. I believe the brand has been now so damaged, so tarnished, that it's not able to pick up and won't be able to pick up the political opportunity that's there, staring it in the face. And so with very great reluctance, I have, as of now, resigned my membership of UKIP, cancelled by standing order at the bank. I'm no longer a member of UKIP, which, hey, it's made up the biggest part of my adult life. It's a very sad thing to do. But there it is. It's done.
Yeah, so as you guys just saw there, it looks like Nigel has left. So whether or not the future of the party will be stable, only time will tell. Definitely, it's not like it's going to be any sort of revolution and like really grow or anything like that. It'll always be a fringe party, but whether or not this fringe party will be more successful than it has been in the past is a totally entirely different question to ask. But certainly it's something that's interesting. He's caused some, what's being dubbed now as the UKIP exodus. Let me read you guys this article because there's apparently more leadership that has been leaving UKIP. This one says, far-right activist Tommy Robinson has sparked a UKIP exodus as ex-leader Paul Nuttall, I don't know how to say that, has walked out just days after Nigel Farage quit. UKIP MEP Paul Nuttall this morning became the latest leading figure in the party to announce his resignation in protest at the decision to appoint Tommy Robinson as an advisor. It says, Mr. Nuttall said, quote, I am resigning because the party is being taken in a direction which I believe is harmful to Brexit. The association with Tommy Robinson will simply appall many moderate Brexit voters and inevitably be detrimental to the cause. The Tommy Robinson issue should have been shelved and debated within the parties following Brexit, in line with sensible decision taken by the National Executive Committee last month. So this whole Tommy Robinson thing, because I guess he was appointed an advisor in the party, it has totally sparked a lot of debate in what's going on. Now, there was this false narrative created back when the whole Tommy Robinson debacle happened, where he was sentenced to prison after defying a judge's orders and going and jury tampering again. So they have, I guess my understanding of it was they have laws in Britain that prevent you from reporting outside of like a certain, you can't do it until the case is over because it tampers with the jury. And so despite this long-lasting law, he was sent, arrested on those charges, and that's what he went in jail for. And people are like, oh, well, why'd he get sentenced so quick? That's clear evidence that it's politically charged or something like that. And the reason was because he was literally out of jail on a specific deal where he wouldn't do that. He was already in a situation where he's in an agreement with the judge saying, yeah, for this amount of time, I'm not going to repeat that mistake. And he did it again. So it was total hysteria, total BS nonsense. This guy who was purposely doing that to pretend to be a martyr was hilarious. and people in the U.S. especially who have no clue about what was going on because they didn't read up on it, were saying, oh, this is a free speech issue, and, you know, free speech is really important, which it is, by the way, but you are pretending as if, you know, this is politically charged when it's not politically charged. You're attempting to, and, you know, there was a situation at the time where, you know, the people who were the defendants would have been able to, I think they filed a motion for a mistrial because of what he did. So people in the U.S. who had no idea about what was going on were saying stuff as if they knew what was going on, which they didn't. So people like Roseanne and even TJ did, but I think he sort of walked back some of the stuff he said a little bit. He still stood by what he said, but he kind of changed up what he said. Because the original tweet was something like, you know, free speech for journalists or whatever, when that's not the issue at hand. Anyways, so that has that has now tarnished the brand of UKIP, and it has caused a mass exodus. But the thing is that there may be a future in this for UKIP. Honestly, I have no idea. One thing I will say is I would not trust a party that has Sargon of Akkad at, you know, one of sort of the figures, I want to say. I don't know if that's even correct characterization to do, but I think he just had an interview on his channel with the now leader of the actual UKIP party. So it's a huge split going on, and it will be interesting to see what comes of this. But certainly, a lot of people who fought for Brexit, like Nigel and like this guy, are leaving now. So this, I don't really see how this gains steam for the Brexit issue. I feel like it's going to lose a lot of steam because Tommy Robinson also has a lot of shady ties. And some of these people in the party now have shady ties to groups like the EDL and just different bad situations. I believe there were like Tommy Robinson's supporters who started getting into fights with people. It was just really bad. I think I did a video on that where like there are these people who were protesting, who were like really bloodied up by them, and they were like hitting cops and stuff. It was insane. It was unbelievable. It was crazy. It was insane. So this is really interesting. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think about this down below.